There we go. All right. Tyler Richards is a data scientist at Snowflake, where he works on marketing or making data apps more accessible and impactful. He graduated from US Industrial and Systems Engineering program in 2018, where he focused on election science projects, a passion that took him to Facebook, where he worked on election integrity and other social good efforts. Along the way, he discovered the open source Python library Streamlit, loved it enough to write a book about it, and was hired by the team shortly before they were acquired by Snowflake. Tyler now lives in Seattle, where he plays soccer and tennis very poorly, his words, not ours. He also served as the president of DSI 7 years ago, so it's awesome to have him back with the community he helped grow. Please welcome Tyler Richards.
Hi everyone. Hey. Well, before we get started, Ken, we have a reasonably small group here. Can you guys give me like a few people just shout out like what is y'all's background? Are you all is it like mostly well, how about this? Why don't you raise your hand if you're an undergrad?
Everyone,
Raise your hand if you're a
except
master's student. Everyone is
oh
undergrad.
no, there's one master student.
One master's student. Okay. Lovely. That is perfect. Um, Great. So I'm actually going to share my screen. I have some slides. I have some slides, but hopefully we won't stick to them too sincerely. Let me go and just go into slideshow sign. I just called this lessons from Tyler, or the other thing is I'll call it everything I did wrong. The most important thing here is you all desperately have to interrupt me. Uh, if I talk for more than 5 minutes straight, you can't stop me. I just straight up will not be stopped. So please interrupt. And that's right, just yell out. And I would really like you to just anything that I'm talking about that you're interested in or want to hear more about or want to hear less about. I want you to tell me and tell me very much immediately. And I will be personally very disappointed if I'm not interrupted in the next 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking about stuff and I have no idea if it's going to be relevant or interesting to you all. So please speak up. That's the first thing. So as I nicely said, I am Tyler. I was the president of DSI 7 years ago, and I loved it. I thought I had the best time. I was an ISE mostly because we didn't have a big fancy data science building that apparently you all now have, and a big fancy data science major that you all now have. We had shitty little classrooms in stats departments and whatever else. So I took IC because they taught some Python, they taught some stats. And by the time I figured out I wanted to do data science, it was like a little late, to be totally frank. And so I was like, all right, well, I see it's good enough, and I'm pretty sure it'll get me where I want to go anyway. So while I was at UF, I interned at Procter and Gamble a couple times. And the first go around that I was interning or trying to intern at Procter and Gamble, I kind of fell on my face and did not do well at all. I was interviewing at the for the summer after my sophomore year, and yeah, I just had no idea what I was doing. Everyone was kind of asking me, like in all the interviews, what are stuff that you work on, and like yeah, it wasn't great because all I had was kind of school projects. So I was trying to tell them about like my classwork, and they just kind of didn't care because it wasn't that interesting. And turns out when you take classes, other people take those same classes too. So it does not set you apart at all to do classwork because there are other people in them. Um, but eventually, I started working in the election science group at UF, which is with, I don't know if anyone here knows Dan Smith or Michael McDonald, but they have a kind of an election science group that was coming, and they let me join mostly because none of the political science students knew anything about programming, and I had taken a couple classes in R. And so they let me do it, even though I was a horrible programmer. And it was fun. At a really good time, I learned all my stuff that way. Um, I then got into a full-time role at Meta after I graduated, and I basically got a referral for Meta from one of my friends that had been there the summer before. And they really, at the time, this was in 2018. So I was there was a big push inside of industry for getting people who have worked in election science and on kind of like the hacking of US elections. And that is exactly what I had been working on. So Meta really would like to hire lots of election scientists. And so I was extremely lucky for those two reasons. One is I had a referral, and two, they were hiring every election scientist they could get their hands on. And it was the zero interest rate phenomenon that we were going through in 2018. So once I got there, I really like, as Aaron mentioned, I really liked an open source library called Streamlit, and I was messing around with it, and I knew I wanted to go and work for kind of a Series B company. Um, and I kind of wanted to be the first data scientist somewhere. So I was trying to get a job at this company, Streamlit, and they didn't have a data team because there were 10 people, so they had no data scientists on board. And so then I started writing about it online, and I I was like, well, and then COVID hit, and I had so much time in my hands, it was frankly ridiculous. So I decided to write a book about it, which is not that hard, turns out. And it also makes you $0 functionally. It like rounds to no money. But my thought process was, well, maybe they'll give me a job if when they hire a data team, if I write the book about them. And so then I wrote it, and they gave me a job. And then 4 months later, they got bought by Snowflake. Literally like 9 weeks. It was 9 weeks after my start date. And so then I've been at Snowflake for the past 3 years. And that is that's basically my whole CV, as they say. This talk is going to be in three sections. I'm going to talk about uh, how to try to be valuable inside organizations, how to appear valuable outside organizations. What most people think these two are the same thing. I'm here to tell you that they could not be different skills. They're more different skills. They are so wildly different, being valuable and appearing valuable. And then the third skill is getting the attention of people that you want attention from. Um, these three skills are probably the three biggest ones that um, that I see a lot of junior data scientists being very bad at, frankly. Um, and so I don't think, like, I was thinking about the different things that I could talk to you all about. I could give you all some stats work, or, lessons on charting, or lessons on visual, or whatever. But I actually think most of you all are probably pretty good there. And especially if you're in the state where you're sitting in a symposium like this on a Saturday, like, there's very little that is actually going to be, super relevant. These, I would say most people in this room are probably really, really bad at, if I had to guess from my experience. And I think that because I was really bad at this when I was at UF, and it took me almost 10 years to figure out how to be even mediocre at this. Okay, it's been 5 minutes and no one has interrupted me, and I told you I was going to be very disappointed. And so now I'm here to tell you I'm disappointed. Which one of these three things are you all least interested in talking about? You don't have to raise your hand. At the beginning, I said just yell it out. I want an interruption.
I
Crank
think
it
that
out.
they're all very interesting, and very, like, they all go hand in hand, right? You put the talk in three sections for a reason. So I think we're all just very on our tiptoes. Like, what's next?
Great. Someone else started to talk. I'd love to hear what you were having to say.
Third one. Yeah, third one.
Great. Okay. This is kind of a head fake talk because this is a talk really about avoiding stupidity more than anything else. My strong belief is that if you're trying to get better at a skill, you should actually just think about what does a really bad job look like, and then just don't do that. And you'll probably get farther than if you are trying to think about anything else. You all are probably very familiar with this quote. This is from Charlie Munger, and he basically said, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." And the kind of like point here is a very Jacobian point, the mathematician, which is invert, always invert. It's very often to just invert your problem and see where you, instead of saying, how can I be the best data scientist in the world? Ask yourself, well, what do really bad data scientists do? And then don't do that. And you're almost automatically going to be in the top 20% of anyone. This is a quote that also rhymes with it, which is avoiding stupidity is 100 times easier than seeking brilliance. I feel this in my bones, where most of the time avoiding stupidity is genuinely, yeah, just like much, much, much easier than any sort of brilliance that you might be able to figure out. The first thing is how to be valuable inside organizations. Invert, always invert. Do, do, do. Uh, the first way to be not valuable at all inside an organization is doing something really fancy that doesn't solve the problem. This is something that I see a lot from undergrads who spend a lot of time on the academic side. Maybe they did a lot of research with someone, or they're very into fancier statistical models. Um, and then I see it even more from, frankly, PhD students who spend a lot of time mostly doing nothing, and then they get into industry and will be very excited to spend 2 years making a very fancy model of some kind. But the problem is, once you get into industry, the thing that our people are actually looking for is, I need this person to solve a real problem for me, and I have this problem today. And so the faster and better that you solve this problem, the more I'm going to be happy. Um, while I was at Meta, there was this problem where so I worked in election integrity, and then I worked on a bunch of the integrity measurement teams. And the way that you can think about this problem is Meta has a lot of bad things that happen um, on Facebook. So this is actually when it was called Facebook. So I'm going to call it Facebook because that's what I'm more comfortable with. But while I was at Facebook, uh, basically they're just trying to find, you've got a ton of content, you have photos and you have Facebook posts and you have videos, and you are trying to minimize the number of views of, say, hate speech or porn on Facebook. And so the measurement at the end is you count all the views and you sample them, and then you look and you give it to a machine learning model or a person, and you ask them, or the model, is this porn? Or is this hate speech? Or is this terrorism? Or whatever. And it's way more complicated than that. But that is the like general focus of a massive org inside of Facebook. That organization, their total budget is almost like $2 billion a year, is huge, just for the spend on making sure that whenever you scroll through Instagram Reels, you're not seeing hate speech. Um, so one of the fundamental problems that they have is, at the time, like, in order to prevent hate speech views, you need to know for any individual post what the views of that post will be in the next 24 hours. Because if you can predict what the views of that post will be in the next 24 hours, then as you're deciding how to use your very valuable GPU and person time, you can say this post, if we think that there's an 80% chance that this is hate speech, but we think it's going to get 3 views in the next 24 hours, so it kind of doesn't matter. We think that this other thing is 60% chance that it's hate speech, but it's going to get 1,000. We think it's going to get 1,000 views in the next 24 hours. So you're actually going to prefer and look at the second one if you're able to predict what's called a viewport view on your screen. Now that you have that context, it might be a little bit too much context, but that's kind of like the central problem that we had. And while we were there, there was this team that was just this big machine learning team full of data scientists, and they were just trying to predict viewport views. And they kind of like hidey hole their way into making this model. And the architecture of this model that they decided was super fancy at the time. However, the latency on this model made it such that it was basically, I'm forgetting the exact order of magnitude, but it was in between 10 and 100,000 times too slow. Because this is Facebook, you have so much content that is being spit at you all the time. Any model that you have needs to be like sub 10 milliseconds latency. Otherwise, it's just almost completely useless to you. You cannot have a 1 second latency that is, it's just, you might as well stop. It's a giant waste of time. So they spent all this time figuring out this problem, and they had a super fancy model that worked really well, but it didn't actually solve the problem, which is at view time, can I figure out if the future future VPVs um, for this piece of content? And so uh, the lesson that I took from that is figure out what the real problem is and what the real constraints are for your problems, and don't do anything else. Just try and solve the problem as quickly as you possibly can, as well as you possibly can. Um, yeah, question, please.
So for like the example of like the hate speech, how would you predict that one post is not gonna have like that many views, but like one post is gonna blow up and have like 100 or like 1,000 of views?
Exactly. I mean, that's a really great question. So it's actually an extremely hard problem. It's an extremely hard problem to figure out. And the main way that Meta ended up doing it was the most important feature is who is posting it and what are the average interactions and views of their posts over the course of the past 2 weeks. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you can do on top of that that are where did they post it? Is it text? Is it video? How long is the video? What were the views of this post? Because it's a every single minute you can have a new prediction for an individual post, right? Where what are going to be the next 24-hour views for this post? That can change all the time. So how many views did it get in the past 10 minutes? What is the delta between 10 minutes and 20 minutes ago? Like there's so many other features, but the one that obviously was most important, and it's like, well, no shit, of course it's going to be that, is who is posting it. If Barack Obama posts on Facebook, that is going to get 5 million views in the next 24 hours. And if someone else posts exactly what he posts, most of the time, no one is going to view it. There's going to be, 5 or 10 views. So who is posting and what is their average interactions was the number one feature. Um, and yeah, so if you're predicting VPVs, like that is going to be a better use of solving the problem is, hey, I'm just going to create a very, very basic, not even like a linear regression style model on those types of features. And that can be done, uh, way sub 10 millisecond. Okay, cool. Uh, the second one is I kind of blended the first one and the second one. But this is the problem where I actually screwed something up. This was a big thorn in my side for a long time, where while I was also at Facebook, I had this problem where when we were sampling for content, not actually for content, Facebook has 50,000. Um, they are content moderators that sit across the globe and know a bunch of different languages. And Facebook cares a whole lot about, are those content moderators good um, at taking down content? Are they accurate? When they say something is hate speech, what is their precision? When they say something is not hate speech, what is their recall? Who are the best of the best that we can use to train these very, very large machine learning models, and who are not that good, frankly. So I was designing this system that was going to be helpful to figure out who within this workforce is very good and who within this workforce is not as good. And as I started, this is right when I started there. So I got this kind of like system design, and I was working with a bunch of the different engineers on this long-standing project. And everyone had said, okay, we need 20 samples per reviewer per week. And I was like, okay, I assume that someone else has done the, power analysis calculations to figure out, given this sample size, what are going to be the confidence intervals around any individual metric that we create, along with cost budgeting estimation for all this other stuff. Like I assumed all this work had already been done by someone, and we started building this system. And then maybe like 4 months down the line, I kind of turned to the different engineers and I was like, hey, so how do we come up with this 20 samples number? Like, how do we figure this one out? And basically, no one had any idea. They were like, oh, this just like sounded good at the time. And Then I basically regretted that decision for the next like year, probably about a year, because it was not enough samples at all for any individual reviewer for the week, and that was really tough, and it made like the system that we were designing like much worse. And there are a lot of decisions that you'll make as data scientists that are they are one-way doors. They are not two-way doors. You cannot remake this decision, in a month or 2 months. And I didn't ask sufficient questions. I was missing a ton of context, and I was frankly scared to like try to double check what had already been done. And that really like wasted tons of money and tons of time for a big organization. So that's something that I screwed up. So how to be a bad data scientist is, or how to not be valuable inside organizations, not asking questions and missing tons of context. The other one that I see a lot is how to be a bad data scientist, or how to not be viable inside organizations, competing aggressively with other data scientists. This happened a lot at Meta, where people would want to kind of put other data scientists down and in subtle ways be like, oh, I'm better than these other data scientists. And whether or not that was true, it makes like everyone can tell that this happens. The product managers and engineers and everyone else, they can tell that the way that you're framing things is to try and put yourself above other data scientists. And especially as very junior data scientists, it's not only a bad look, but it's like long-term harmful for your career because uh, industries are smaller than you would expect. There's not that many data scientists out there. There's not that many data science managers. And eventually you will work with people again, and you want to be hyper collaborative with them. So I had two coworkers at Meta, that Edmund and James, that were constantly, like, for some reason, just very, very competitive with every other data scientist. And it caused a lot of like they turned out to be promoted slightly faster because of it in the beginning, but they hit a ceiling so fast. They hit a ceiling within a year and a half of actually like of just like they hit a career ceiling, because if you work and no one really wants to work with you because they're afraid they're going to compete with you, then it sucks. I don't know if anyone has like very similar experiences at internships or something else, but I think it is very long-term harmful for careers to be aggressively competing with other folks. Okay, thoughts, comments, questions before I move on to the next one?
So this is a question. So if not competing aggressively, obviously you're being very collaborative with others. How would you say that this is, like you talked about Edmund and James's career progression in that they hit a ceiling. So how would you say that you learned from that, and where has it gotten you in your organization now, I guess?
Yeah. I guess I guess my own career progression is kind of interesting because so I while I was at Meta, I mean I can just tell you everything in the interest of transparency. So while I was at Meta, I started as something that's called an IC3, which is a junior data scientist, and then after a year and a half, I got to an IC4, and then I left Meta about 2.5 years in, um, and um, I left Meta, and then when I went over to Streamlit, I negotiated for a promotion as well. So I was and which it didn't even really matter at Streamlit because there were not any other data scientists. So they're like, call yourself whatever you want. I don't care. I was like, great. And then when we got bought by Snowflake, 9 weeks later, they promoted everyone in the acquisition. Um, and then a year after that, I got promoted again. So I don't actually have any more levels that I can go up in Snowflake. I'm the highest level data scientist that is possible um, there. And it's mostly because I got promoted 4 times in a year and a half, um, which is kind of nuts. And it is not something that is like very typical. I would say the promotion side is something that usually just take care of itself if you can actually solve problems for the business. And if you can solve problems for the business, then everything else is going to be fine. If you start making the company that you're working for either make more money or stop losing money in one area, um, that is the ultimate way of like career progression that I've seen. And I think that is like, and just like people want to work with you and you want to work with other people if they feel like, hey, let's work on this stuff together. We are all out here trying to solve a problem. So I found a ton of use in that work. The Yeah, I don't know if that exactly answers your question or not.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Others, is there a hand raised? Oh, sweet. Hey, go ahead, please.
I'm kind of unclear on what you mean by competing aggressively. Like, can you give like an example? Like,
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. So that's a really great question. So there are very often in data science organizations, some things that will happen are someone will be presenting on their work, and they will be like getting ready to present on their work in front of a larger group of people. Uh, the rest of the data scientists will get to see that work um, early. So they'll be able to see the deck that they're sending to everyone else early. And if I've definitely seen that this happened with James, but James uh, would see the deck of other data scientists early that they were going to present, and not really say what he thinks about, like kind of hide his opinions a little bit. And then when it's being presented in front of everyone, then he would ask very pointed, like harsh questions about like something that he knew a lot about, but he knew that they didn't know the answer to. So, and he would use that as a way of putting other data scientists down and making him look like, oh, well, that guy James really knows what he's talking about. But that guy John that was presenting it doesn't know anything. Like he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's like an example of that's probably the harshest. And he would do this like all the time. It was extremely annoying. Um, and if you view it from the outside and you don't know, then you're just like, oh, wow, that's a really good question from James. And why can't John answer this? Um, so it's mostly kind of just being mean to other data scientists. The other thing is what I mean by competing aggressively is just wanting to be the only data scientist working on a project. So uh, if and this happens a lot inside also a lot inside of organizations where you'll have a scope. So I will be the data scientist that's focused on accuracy measurement for integrity or something like that. And it is easier inside organizations to claim that you're the person doing something if you really are the only person that's doing it. And so sometimes you can compete in the short term by refusing to collaborate with anyone else, such that you get all the um, praise when things go well. And that may work in the short term, but if you're working on something that is difficult and long term, you're going to need to work with other people, and a team is going to outpace an individual. So I guess that's what I mean by competing aggressively with other data scientists is mostly it's not being collaborative and not really being like a good team member in the interests of short-term political gain that are a long-term loss. Answer your question? Not answer your question?
yeah, you answered.
Somewhere in the middle?
No, that was good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, the next one is appearing valuable outside organizations, which I think is really really hard to do, and it's frankly what most of you all are trying to do right now. I spent a lot of time in undergrad trying to figure out how do I look good to an organization that doesn't know anything about me. Some ways that people try to do this is I want to have a really nice resume, or I want to have a paper that I publish somewhere, or I want to have some sort of data science project that is sitting on my GitHub, or people have all different types of ways to appear valuable outside of organizations. Um, so the worst way in my mind, and I'll give you a little bit more context for this. I spent a lot of time recruiting at Meta. I probably did 50 plus interviews and saw hundreds of resumes for interns and junior data scientists. I started to do the same thing at Streamlit, and now I hire at Snowflake as well. And so I see resumes and people's projects and all the stuff. I would say, multiple a week for the past 5 years, at least. Um, yeah, so I've seen a lot of these, and because I've seen a lot of them, I've seen definitely some tricky things. Uh, I do have bad news for everyone is that Snowflake doesn't hire junior people. They don't hire people out of without industry like multiple years of industry experience. It's kind of like a Netflix style thing where they don't hire anyone that is straight out of undergrad or frankly straight out of their PhD program. Um, it's kind of a funny thing, but they just don't do it. Anyway, so appearing valuable outside organizations. The number one way that I see people do poorly at this is having no public work. If I don't have any public work that I can see, then as someone who's trying to figure out if you're a good data scientist or not, I I can't. The only thing that I will rely on if I don't have any public work is, okay, did you have an internship at somewhere that's crazy impressive? And even then, I'm like, I don't know. So then I'm just going to hire out of like extremely good schools. Because if I'm I would look at someone that's like, okay, they graduated from MIT. Great, I'll probably interview that person. But if they went to University of Arkansas, I'm not, and they don't have any public work, there's almost no chance I'm going to interview that person just because I don't have any context for if they're going to be good or not. And it would take too much of my time to figure out if there's anything good there. While I was in undergrad, I spent a ton of time working on a bunch of different projects. I spent a lot of time inside of student government, which is kind of a waste of time, and it's such a silly group and organization. I wasn't a part of the fratty system groups. I was a part of like the other ones. Um, but yeah, I spent a lot of time there, and I did a lot of like data science on elections for student government at UF, which was fun, but it was ultimately useless. However, I published a lot of that stuff online with code and wrote a nice Medium article about it. And so when I was interviewing, I interviewed for this group that was called Protect Democracy, which did like it was like a nonprofit that was in New York that I wanted to work for, mostly because I wanted to live in New York for like 6 months. But as I was trying to interview there, I actually skipped all the interviews with them because they just saw my public work and they were like, "Oh, you don't have to do the coding interview. I've seen like this project that you've done. You clearly can do it." Which was extremely helpful for me. I was like, "Oh, great! Now I don't have to do this coding interview." And I loved it. So number one thing is no public work. This is the other thing I think I see all the time, which is public work that is hidden behind lots of clicks. If you have like a GitHub and there's like, oh, my project is inside this GitHub, inside this repo, inside this Jupyter notebook, inside this function, and then maybe if you download it and run it, then you can see this work. It's like, that's horrible. I'm never going to do that. No one is ever going to do that. It basically is useless. So if your public work is if I have to do more than one click, it's over. You have one click. You have one click and you have 45 seconds. Pops. So use that click very, very effectively. Um, yeah, it's just like it sucks and it's a reality, but I messed this up so harshly. I was at, we got a question. Go ahead.
You say public work, and I understand like what is like the importance behind it. But how do I stand out? I feel like everybody have their own like personal project, their own public work. How do I stand out with my own work as a data
Yeah,
scientist?
do something interesting. Don't do something that's lame. Uh, so yeah, that's the biggest thing is I'll generic public work is my third one. I wish the Titanic data set sunk with the Titanic. I hate that thing. I see so much stuff that is like a little bit of public work that is like, oh, this person isn't actually interested in this. Like I want something that is like, oh, this is kind of silly. No one else would do this. Like there's this deep like I have this deep feeling of like person project fit where uh, uh you have to, if I can tell in like almost no time at all if you're actually interested in this project or not. So do something that you're actually interested in. And the number one way in my mind is find a data set that no one else has, which means make it. So the way that I did it for the student government data set and is basically I was just like, hey, can I make a little model that predicts whether or not like who's going to win this student government election at this year for in the individual Senate seats. And so I went back through all of the PDFs of all of the student government elections going back to like 1995. And then I hand coded all of that data because it didn't need copy and paste well. No one else is going to do that. Like, that's a crazy, dumb thing to do. It took me like 4 or 5 hours at least of like very menial work. So, my advice is the easiest way to have non-generic public work is have public work that no one else would reasonably do. Like find something that you're actually interested in and then make a little data set for. I'll give you another example. I changed my website recently because I wanted to make it look like Berkshire Hathaway. Uh, website. I wanted to make it look like Berkshire Hathaway. I thought it was silly, so now it looks like Berkshire Hathaway. But one of the projects. Oh no! Wow, it's dead. One of the projects I work on is called while I was at UF is a ping pong data set where I played ping pong a bunch with my friends, and I wanted to figure out who was the best between us, and so I recorded every ping pong game that we had for a semester, uh, and then like made a little chart about it. And this is bad. Like look at this code. Look at that. Gross. That's sick. No one should ever write code like this. This is disgusting. But I made a plot that is kind of interesting, and I was able to talk about it. And as soon as you start to talk about it like that, you're like, oh yeah, I recorded every ping pong game that my friends and I played and ran a ELO model on top of it. Uh, that's funny. Like that is a data set that no one else has. Um, uh, yeah, and so that's my advice to you on like how to do something interesting is be interested in something, um, and then do a data science project on it. Cool. Let's see, where was I? Public work, hidden behind clicks. Spotify. So Spotify was tough. As I was in at UF, I was trying to get a job as a data scientist at Spotify, and I started an interview, and I was able to get an interview there at the time, and um, I had I didn't have my website wasn't as nice, and all this other stuff was going on. My public work was frankly hidden behind. I think you had to do 3 or 4 clicks in order to get to some public work of mine. And so the recruiter was talking about it, and they told me they were like, "Oh, I can't find like any like real project. Like I can see a bunch of like stuff you've kind of talked about work that you're doing, but I can't really see that you've done a lot of this." And it was very nice that they gave me that feedback because they didn't have to. But I totally think of like how many other people have looked at my website or GitHub or whatever else that at that time basically churned from being interested in me because it took me too long. Yeah, generic public work is it's killer. It's really, really killer. The other thing is, while I was in undergrad, there weren't a lot. It was significantly harder to like make a real website and make a data science project that someone could physically go and interact with. And now it's really easy. The tool that I work on is called Streamlit, which makes it really easy to make data science projects and put them out on the internet. Super easy. You can also do it with Replit. Like you can make a data science project and then, host it on Replit. Or you could just ask ChatGPT to help you make a little website once you have something. Like it is incomparably easy to actually show me some public work that you're working on. And so now there's even less of an excuse of, hey, you should have a website that within one click can show me some cool work that you've done that you're interested in, that I can interact with. That's like kind of a little bit bare bones. Um, cool thoughts, complaints, questions, critiques.
Question about public work. How important is it to have the actual code be open source, or is it just the product itself that is what screams more to, like, I guess, recursion sense?
Yeah, I go. Uh, I think people do it backwards, where they're like, okay, they want to see the code, and then once they see the code, then I'll show you what the code does. I think you should flip it, and kind of what you're leaning at is show me the cool thing that you made that I can interact with, like a little toy or like a digital toy or some cool chart or whatever else. And then if the code happens to be open source, great. That would be nice. I would get to understand your style a little bit more. But I'm not too worried about like actually reading all of the code. I'm more like the biggest gap is, can you make something that's interesting? And if you can make something that's interesting, and I believe that it is you that made it because you're interested in it, then I'm not too concerned with like, can I see every bit of code here? Why do you ask? Do you work on a lot of projects that are like, oh, I don't want to open source this because they're trying to sell it, or oh, I don't know, I'm working for a company and they don't want to open source it? Like, what's the thrust?
To some degree, yes. Some stuff that I've been working on is not open source. It's not public on GitHub. So I was curious, like, is that something like looked down upon? So yeah.
Yeah, but can I see it? Like, could I go to a website and
Yes.
mess around with it?
Yes.
Yeah, then I think that's great.
Okay. Thank you.
The worst situation is if you show me a bunch of code and I can't actually see what it does. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm not running that shit. No chance. No chance. Oh, here's a Python script. Are you crazy? No, I'm not gonna do that. Okay. This next bit is something that I am I wish I did more while I was in college, because you all have something that is probably worth tens of thousands of dollars a year, and I don't know how often you use it. And that is a .edu email address. A .edu email address is so valuable because everyone, a lot more people will respond to you with a .edu email address than with a at gmail.com or something. And the art of the cold email is, it truly is an art. And I get maybe 1 to 2 cold emails a week. And I think almost all of them are not good. Um, and so I am here to try to tell you how to write a better cold email, because you guys can do it. Like you guys can talk to, I firmly believe that you can talk to almost anyone that you want to on the planet with a good cold email and a .edu email address. And I know because I respond to a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of people that respond to cold emails if they're good. I have a bunch of friends that have gotten meetings with everyone from Peter Thiel to Mark Andreessen. Someone was able to cold email his way up to Bill Clinton. And I was like, that's a good cold email. Like if you can get to like Bill Clinton reads and responds to your email from a good cold email, that's crazy. Um, so let's talk about the ways in which this could go wrong. Number one, long emails. Uh, Usually you're trying to cold email someone and you're like, they probably don't have a lot of time. Most cold emails that I get, 2 to 3 paragraphs. I think they should be 2 to 3 sentences. Um, but the long email is something that I don't think I've really ever been cold emailed, and someone has done a really amazing job at this. But long emails is a killer. Long emails that could be sent to anyone. If in the email you could probably have copied and pasted and sent it to 5 people, that is basically a guarantee that no one is going to respond. At least in my view. So you have to have something in your email that could only be sent to Aaron Goffstein. Otherwise, Aaron, in 15 years, when he's the chief data officer of Procter & Gamble, he's not going to respond. Third thing is asking for time without clear expectations or outcomes. Um, that is a big no-no in my mind, where if you're like, hey, can I get 15 minutes to chat or something? That is an extremely clear way that you don't have a clear ask. You just kind of want to talk. Um, and that is a very strong a very strong reason why your cold emails today might not be getting answered if you all are cold emailers. Um, Before I talk any more about this, how many of you all send, let's say, more than 5 cold emails a semester? How many of you all send at least 1 cold email a semester? Okay, so you guys are somewhere in between 1 and 5 a semester, right? I think you should try it like once a week. Like cold emails is a skill, and the downside is really low, and the upside is so crazy high. So if I had to tell myself, and I didn't do this enough in college, I was like scared of it. And who cares? You should just practice it and do it more. In at least in my mind. Um, I'm going to show you 2 examples, and then I have one more slide, and then I'm all done. Here's one good example. This is in June of 2020. This is a good example, only kind of. And it's only kind of a good example because you'll notice that it is long. It's long. And my first point was don't make it long. So this was not the best example of all time, but it is probably one of the better uh, uh, emails that I have seen. And I don't have to read it exactly in full, but one, he mentioned someone that I knew, Trey. Two, he's saying, "Hey, this is my plan. I'm in my 4th year of ISC. Here's what my next steps are going to be. I'm going to go to Kaggle, make some projects, put these projects on GitHub, and apply to companies to get an internship this year. Like, though, that's my plan." Fourth thing, um, is he said basically, some other stuff. This quote right here, where he says, "Also, looking at your website, you have a gigantic list of books that you have read. I have read around 100 books since coming to college. My Audible account is my best friend. I just finished The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, and I pulled a lot from it." I was like, this this sentence here made it super clear that this email is only going to me if I hadn't already seen this. So this is really great. And then he says, "Hey, look, this is the direction that I'm heading in. I've been trying to figure out how to get into data science without a master's PhD. Can you bump me in any which way? I don't want to take up a ton of your time or mental real estate." And immediately I was like, okay, because I can respond to this via email. I can offer to reach out and chat with him. He clearly is like interested in hearing what I have to say, and he'll probably do something differently based off of it. So this is like a banger, great example of a cold of a cold email. And this is only kind of cold. I would say this is like lukewarm. If I had to make this better, I would just cut half of it. I would just start here, basically here, uh, and then ask about the bump thing at the end. You can cut almost, 50% of the words here. This is really good. This is a bad example that I got 2 weeks ago. And I took out their name because I didn't want to roast them, but it's okay. This person, we got a question from Alejandro.
Yeah, sorry, this is a bit of a silly question, but would you remember what the email header was for the good example?
Oh,
Because I see the
no,
content, but
that's
still
great.
getting attention is hard.
Let me look it up. I can answer that in just a second. Du-du-du-du-du. See. That's actually a great. I actually don't know what. Oh, his header was UF ISE Senior Advice. Not great,
Okay,
not
yeah, it
bad.
seems pretty straightforward. Would you say
Yeah.
that's a good way to get attention, just being straightforward, or do you think it's important to like put something, I guess, more flashy?
No, I don't think you need to be too flashy. Like I for almost every email, someone is almost guaranteed to read if like that caught my attention because okay, this is someone from UF. Okay, they were also in ISC and they want some advice. Got everything that I need. And then I'll probably at least read the first sentence. I have no guarantee of reading the entire thing, but I'll at least read the first sentence.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Here's a bad example. The bad example is, Dear Tyler Richards, I hope you're doing well. My name is blank. And then tell me a bit. I'm a junior cognitive science major at UC San Diego, specializing in blah, 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 blah. I came across your work through your website and admire your insights and contributions to the field. And then I am trying to reach out to professionals that we look up to and ask a few questions about their journey. If you're open to it, I'd love for three busy questions or brief questions. What sparked your interest in data science? What's one piece of advice? And how do you stay updated with the rapidly evolving field of data science and machine learning? I know you're busy, but I appreciate any time that you have to spare. This is a bad cold email. I'm never going to respond to anything like this. Almost a 0% chance. Because I don't know how they found me. I don't know why they really care about me answering these questions. Um, and it's so interesting. It's like, okay, do you follow me on Twitter? Like, how do you know who I am? Like, I have no clue. So, I would basically do the opposite of this. They also spend a lot of time like talking about themselves when they can say, "Hi, Tyler, I'm blank, a CS major." Or like a machine learning student at UC San Diego. Like they could replace the entire first paragraph with just like 6 words or something like that. So this is an example of like a pretty typical bad cold email that really they just want an email back from me about like these three questions for a development seminar. But there's just no chance that I'm ever going to respond to something like this. Question, please.
Do you think it's a good or bad idea to cold email the same person multiple times?
Um, I think you can follow up once.
Okay.
I would say following up once is fine. It also depends on what you want. Like what are you thinking about a specific example that you'd like to ask about?
Yeah, like
Or just principle?
I was interested in doing research with a professor and I cold emailed her once, but I was thinking about following up. So
Yeah, follow up for sure. That is a easy. If it's a professor that you want to do research with. So actually I started doing research in the biomedical engineering department with my freshman year because I thought I wanted to be a biomedical engineer. And then I tried doing biomedical engineering and I said, nope, this sucks. I really don't want to do this. Or I don't think it sucks. It just sucks for me. Like I was like, I would hate this. And the way that I got a research role before I actually stepped on campus was I emailed the Sharma lab and I found this woman's email and um, I read 3 of her papers beforehand. I just sat down, I read them, printed them out, circled some stuff. And I asked one question in my cold email that made it clear to her that I had read her paper. Um, and and then that's it. And then she let me do research with her. I think it's mostly as easy as that, as just doing a little bit extra to prove to the person, hey, I actually have spent time on this. This is not like a half-ass thing. And I spent a lot of other time. Like the other research role that I had was with Dan Smith. I mentioned in the election science group, and I met him because I just sat in on this class because I thought it was cool. And it was like the class met at 8 a.m. on Fridays. And one time after I've been sitting in this class for like 3 or 4 weeks, he like handed out a pop quiz and I had no idea what to do because I wasn't in his class. I was just sitting listening and like listening to the lecture. And so then I took the pop quiz and I went to him afterwards and I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I'm not in your class. I just think it's interesting. I think like this stuff is fun. And I didn't know what to do with this pop quiz, but like you're not going to find me on the schedule, so you don't have to grade it. And so then he was like, what? Like, what is this? So, and then he asked me if I wanted to do research with him, and that was pretty much it. So I met with him, and so I'd say just being like a little weird and doing like weirder stuff to stand out is like the only way that I've found any success. And every other type of way that I've tried to go about it is just like has not gone nearly as well. Okay, cool. I have some more key tips. Um, Inside and outside of work, a demo. I think that the whole thing is like picture says 1,000 words or whatever. I think a demo says a million words. So if you're trying to prove a point or you have an idea for, I want, you work for Airbnb or something, I want this to work in this specific way. If you say it in words, it can go so far. But if you make a little product that shows how it's actually going to work, people go crazy for that. And I think I've built almost my entire career on just making a little demo for something, and then people liking it. And that demo doesn't have to be amazing. But I'll give you an example. As I'm working at Snowflake, I was trying to figure out basically this product that does, I don't know if you all probably know what deep research is, but I was trying to do deep research, but on top of your SQL database. And so I was trying to build this internally. And I made this big doc and people read it and whatever. And then I was like, oh, why don't I just try to build it? So I just like sat down one weekend and tried to build it and make a little like bad demo for it. Made a little bad demo for it. And then only after that point when people saw it, people were like, oh, I get it now. And so then it's like, oh, well, Tyler, do you want to come and work on this team for a month as we try and build this feature? Whereas like creating a doc would have never gotten me. Like I did create a doc and it didn't get me that far. But the instant I had a demo with a video to show people, it's like that goes so far. So the art of making like little demos and taking videos of those demos and showing them to people is a skill that I would just try and practice as much as you possibly can. Inside orgs, outside orgs. The next thing that I think is very important is get good at what you want to do and not what you don't want to do. So you'll notice that this PowerPoint sucks. Every PowerPoint that I make sucks. I just put text on slides. Do you know why? Because I hate doing PowerPoints. And then I do this inside of work and outside of work. And so people know if I want a cool PowerPoint, don't ask Tyler because he's going to make the worst PowerPoint you've ever seen in your life. I had a friend, David, and I learned this story at Meta because my friend David made amazing PowerPoints. And then he became the data science PowerPoint guy that just had to make data science PowerPoints all the time for all different sorts of people. And he did that for like 5 years. And as soon as I saw his life, I said, I don't want to be making PowerPoints, even if they're really pretty. I'm just going to make the worst PowerPoints you've ever seen, and then no one will ask me to do them. So get good at the things you want to do and be bad at the things you don't want to do.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I would think at first that like making really, attractive PowerPoints would be like important for, presenting to higher level execs or anyone, like you're not worried about that rubbing them the wrong way is like low effort.
Nope, not really. Mostly, and the thing is, I like to make demos. So whenever I'm like presenting to higher level execs, I'll just show them a demo, or I'll show them a product, or I'll make a really cool dashboard and then I'll show them the dashboard, and then I'll just screen share and show that. And then they come out with that being like, damn, this guy's really good at demos. He's really good at dashboards. Like he's really good at making this like very impressive visualization or making this kind of tool. But other people go the path of, okay, well, I'm not going to spend all my time making really cool tools, but I'm going to make really amazing dashboards and or really amazing like PowerPoint decks. And other people have gone that way, and it works totally fine for them. But I don't want to do it, and I don't like to do it, so I won't. And I think it's been fine. Sometimes I have to make PowerPoint decks, but mostly people don't really have me do it. Last thing I'll leave you with. This is something that I talked at the beginning. Um, Focus on, especially working at, in industry, so, solve problems with data that either make the company money or make it lose less money. And everything else will be totally fine. Everything else ends up figuring itself in the long run if you do one of these two things. And if you don't find yourself doing one of these two things, things will be very hard for you. That's it. That's all I have today. It's about noon. I can take other questions, but you can find me online by just Googling my name. And I'd love to have a cold email or two from this group. But it was so nice to meet you all. Go Gators! And yeah, ask me any questions that you have before we switch over. I don't know if we have to switch over now.
No, you got a few minutes to take like a few questions.
Yeah, so I had a question. What is next in your career? You talked, you're the highest level at this role, but it doesn't seem like you're stopping here. So what's in your plans? What are you excited about right now?
I will probably stay at Snowflake for at least another year and a few months. And then I'll probably start a company somewhere. And do that route. I would like to work at a small company again. I've mostly worked at very large companies, and I really enjoy working with small groups of people on new and fun things. So I'll probably either start a company or join a very early company of some kind. What it does, I don't know. I have like three or four industries that I think are really fun and I care about. And so I have a good chance of like heading in that direction. Like care a lot about housing and housing abundance as one. I care a lot about like self-driving cars. I think that's really sick. And it'd be fun to work on problems like that. And I think all the AI stuff is really fun, and I enjoy like hacking on stuff there too. So I'll probably either start a company or work in one of those three fields, but I'm not totally sure.
Thank you.
You can just say it.
Hi. Oh, Tyler, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm now a freshman, so I'm having like a question. So I want to go into like both, but I'm kind of stuck. I don't know if I should focus on like doing like personal projects or should I like conducting research. So I'm just a freshman, so I want to like know the way I should go.
I would say the best thing that you can do as a freshman is try to actually do data science and then see if you like it. And if you're sitting there and you're doing a bunch of data science and you hate it, then go and do something else. And then if you're sitting there doing a bunch of data science and you like it, then it'll be pretty clear the different paths that you can go down. But the number one thing is try to figure out if this style of thing is fun and you enjoy it. Because if you like it, then you're going to get very good. And if you don't really like it, then the chance that you're going to be very good is kind of low. That's probably it.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you for your time. We'll let you go. Oh yeah.
It was so nice to meet you all. Thank you all so much.